After the United States carried out its military strike, several governments in Europe voiced concern over the action and questioned whether it complied with international law. Countries such as France, Spain, and Germany called for restraint and urged that disputes between nations be handled through diplomacy and international cooperation. Some leaders argued that the use of force should follow the framework established under the United Nations Charter, particularly Article 2.4, which discourages the use of military force against the sovereignty or territorial integrity of another state. At the same time, international law also recognizes an important exception. Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, nations retain the inherent right of self-defense if they believe they face an armed attack or an imminent threat. Because of these competing interpretations, situations like this often move into discussion at the United Nations, where countries can raise concerns and request international review. However, understanding how the United Nations actually works is important. The Secretary-General and UN leadership are not countries, and they do not have the power to impose sanctions or force a nation to stop military action. Their role is primarily diplomatic, encouraging dialogue, warning about escalation, and urging peaceful solutions. The authority to impose sanctions or take binding action belongs to the United Nations Security Council. The Security Council is made up of 15 members, including 5 permanent members: the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. Under Article 27 of the UN Charter, major decisions require at least 9 votes in favor, and those votes must include the agreement of the permanent members. This rule creates what is known as the veto power. If any one of the permanent members votes against a resolution, that resolution fails. This means that if a proposal were introduced to sanction or punish the United States itself could simply vote no, preventing the measure from passing. Because of this structure, the United Nations often becomes a place where countries debate, criticize, and apply diplomatic pressure, but binding enforcement against major powers is extremely difficult unless those powers agree. As a result, international disputes often continue beyond the United Nations, shifting into the arenas of diplomacy, alliances, negotiations, and global public opinion. For this reason, even when governments object strongly to a military action, the response frequently remains political and diplomatic, rather than punitive.